Aloha. Welcome to our TLC workshop series via Zoom. My name is Kelly Ibalao. I'm here with my co-hosts, Wailana, Christian, and Jenny. Thank you for attending our workshop today. Today's workshop is on hacking your study skills. We're going to be talking about different techniques to be able to manage your time, to deal with a lot of the work that you have to do, and to refocus your priorities and deal with some procrastination issues. If you have any questions, go ahead and post your questions in the chat box. We will have some interactive activities for you guys to do. And if you have any questions, go ahead and just let us know by typing it into the chat box. Let me hand it off to Wailana.
Thank you, Kaylee. Okay, so first things first, we're gonna start it off on a kind of a light note with, oh, this was supposed to be a GIF, but it's not moving. It is an image of, oh. Okay, thanks. It's an image of Nick Fury from the Avengers movies saying, "Until such a time as the world ends, we will act as though it intends to spin on." And we're having these workshops because the world has not ended, despite the mass hysteria and everything that's going on right now, and it may seem like it, but you know what, we're still here, and TLC and UHMC is still here doing whatever we can to help our students through this. So you're not alone in this. Whoever's struggling right now, I promise we haven't gone away and we haven't forgotten you guys. Next slide, please.
Thanks, Wailana. So today's topics is going to cover being realistic on your learnability, SMART goals to guide your progress, guiding questions to hacking your readings and anything you have to read, expectations of studying and learning, some time management tips, test taking tips, and procrastination types, and some suggestions on dealing with your procrastination concerns.
Okay, so we're gonna open up with a little bit of an icebreaker, kind of. So if you can, add one word in the chat of what you want out of this workshop, like what do you expect? And of course, if you need to use more than one word, that's absolutely fine too. Ike, nice. Want that foresight. Okay. And for those who just joined us, we're asking you to add one word in the chat of what you expect out of this workshop or what you want out of this workshop. I see Ike and tips, both good.
Well, hopefully a lot of the information is going to be helpful. Some good knowledge, some EK for our students and our staff that are attending today to kind of help you guys guide through some of all the things that we got to do in this new learning environment that we're all trying to take care of and deal with.
Oh, right, that's still me. Sorry. Okay, so what was the point of us having you do that assignment or that icebreaker? It was so you could see for yourself what your priorities are. So what you think you need, what you know you need. So like Antile, she said that she wants Ike, sight, foresight. She wants that knowledge. Barb wants, you know, tips on how to study better or how to, you know, transition fully into online learning or in this society world that we live in. I couldn't find the word. And honesty with both us and yourself so that we know what you expect out of it and you know what you really came here to do. So you can keep that focus in mind as you go through this workshop so that you can reflect back on it.
The first thing we really talk about as support people in the academic support centers at the TLC is we want to figure out who you are as a person, what abilities do you have, what are your interests, and what really works for you. Some of these tips might be obvious to some people, some of these might be mind-blowing. If there's any of these tips that you feel that you want more information, we'll have our contact info towards the end of the presentation. Go ahead and email us. We can do a one-on-one to go deeper in some of these topics. So first, we got a small little activity.
Activity time.
So for our activity, I want you guys to get either a paper, pencil, something to write with, and then something to keep track of time. So I'm going to have you guys doing a little activity that requires you to time how long it takes you to do 2 separate tasks. Okay, so get your materials ready. If you don't have a piece of paper or pencil, this also works if you verbally do the activity that I'll show on the next slide. Okay, so when you guys are ready, here we go. My first question is, though, multitasking. What is your opinion in the audience of multitasking? Is it good or bad? Jenny, it's good? Anybody else? It's good?
I can do tons of things in one time. It's all on your brain and energy, and it's all about being a positive. You can do it.
Okay.
Sure.
Barbara, what do you think about multitasking?
I guess it can be good depending upon the situation you're in or the environment.
True. Okay. Well, let's see how well you guys are at multitasking. Let me do this little activity. So on the screen, I have a sentence that says, I am a great multitasker. Okay. Read it out to yourself. Look at each of those letters. The activity I want you to do, the first part, is to look at this sentence and write this down like this. It's in a block, but essentially I'm just having you write down the full sentence individually with each letter, kind of written out. So I am a great multitasker, okay? So before you start doing the activity, I'll tell you guys when to start timing. So the first part is, I want you to write this sentence down, and then below the sentence, I want you to write the numbers. Now, if you don't want to write it down, this also works verbally. So for example, if you want to do it verbally, you can say I-A-M-A-G, and then when you're done with that full sentence, say 1 through 20. And then time yourself how long that would take. And then once you've done that little task, go in the chat and put down the amount of time it took you to complete this task. Okay? Are you guys ready?
So they spell out the sentence first and then write the numbers down below.
Right,
it.
that's the first task. Yep.
Okay.
So once I say ready, go ahead and write down the first sentence. And then below that, write down the numbers 1 through 20. The numbers 1 through 20 is because there are 20 letters in this sentence, not including the spaces just 20 letters. Okay? If you guys are ready, go. Okay, so I got Jenny, 23.54 seconds, okay. Wailana, 32 seconds, 35, okay. Antile?
They're laughing.
Oops.
timer didn't go.
The timer never go.
Yeah, sorry.
How many seconds took to?
I would say like 30 seconds.
And we go 30 for Auntie Leigh, okay? Argentina, how long does it take you?
To put the number on the word multitask.
Yeah.
I am a great multitask.
Yeah.
25 seconds.
25 seconds, okay. Sarul? Okay, so let's go on to the second part. Now, what I want you to do is we're going to work with the same sentence, but this time I want you to go write down the sentence, not the full sentence first and then the numbers. I want you to write it I1, A2, M3, A4, and so on. And I want you to time yourself to see how long it would take. Okay? Are you ready? You got your timers ready? Go. Do 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 do.
Wow.
Okay, so Argentina, did you get yours?
30 seconds.
30 seconds. Okay, 30 seconds. Hey, Barbara, how did you do?
Probably about the same. I didn't get all the way through, but I would say about 30 seconds,
Okay.
maybe 35.
So which task was harder?
I say the second one.
The second one, right. Does anybody know why it would be harder?
I think the first one, because the second one, we already knew what to do.
Right, right. But you took a little bit longer than the first time, right?
It took a little bit longer, exactly, because like you take the time to figure out things first.
Exactly.
Then you look at it, and then you plan, and you go for it. That's it.
Right.
Make us do that again, we're going to be faster, and we end up.
But think about it, how many times throughout the day you do one thing, stop that, do another thing, stop that, and then go back, switch around. And a lot of times when we do that, we start to forget what we did earlier, or we feel like we're stressed because there's so many different things that we're taking care of as emergencies. And the reason why it takes longer to do these two different things, the first time is we use one type of brain processing. There's a sentence, we understand what a sentence looks like, we understand a lot of like key clues about what a sentence should be, right? And then we understand how numbers go. Numbers go from, in some sort of order, right? So those are the two things that we understand that could make the first task a lot easier. But when we do the second task, we're separating each of those learning cognitive processes. Verbal, stop doing the verbal, now do numeric. Okay, do verbal again, now do numeric, right? Our brain is not wired to do multiple things using multiple senses at the same time. For example, our first hack is realizing that multitasking is not productive, right? Switching around, going from one thing to another, seems like we're productive, seems like we've done a lot in our day, But really, what is the quality of the work that we're doing when we focus on one thing at a time versus doing 10 things at a time?
Excuse me to interrupt you. I
Sure.
have a quick question. Okay, being a multitask, it doesn't mean start one thing and leave it and continue with another thing. Is that what that mean? Because to me, multitasking is doing few things in a day that you finish. You're gonna start one thing and then leave it up
Good.
half and I don't know.
That's
Could you tell
exactly
me?
what, yeah, that's exactly my point. Is you said the key word, finish, right?
Yeah.
You do your task, then you finish it. Some point, you finish the task, right?
Exactly.
So with a lot of like working at home, trying to figure out how to organize your daily schedule, it's so easy to get with all these different distractions coming in that doesn't allow us to finish our tasks. We put our tasks on hold to do another task, right? So Argentina, perfect. That's exactly what we're trying to get towards is, the way you operate, you have to finish your tasks and then switch to another task, right? And some extreme examples of multitasking that doesn't work, of course, is driving and texting. Why is that illegal? You're using your visual sensory inputs to drive. You're using motor skills to be able to make sure you don't hit anybody. But then something rings, you want to give attention to that. You lose attention on what you're doing. You can't look at two things at the same time. You can't focus on two things at the same time. Driving and texting is an extreme example of how it's really bad. Lots of accidents happening because of this idea that being productive and multitasking is a good trait, right? Like Argentina said, you really have to figure out, are you done with the task before you move on to the next task?
Exactly. You have to control your multitask.
Exactly.
If you drive, you don't answer the phone. If you are writing a paper, you don't answer the phone. If you are with a tutor, you pay attention to a tutor and you don't get distracted with somebody that walk by, Just
Right.
focus on things and finish the things in a period of time you set for that.
Exactly. Yep. Some other examples too. It's like talking and eating. Why did my grandma always say, don't talk while you eat? Well, you might choke because you can't talk and also eat. We know the windpipe, the esophagus, two different areas. But what happens when you try to talk and eat at the same time? You might choke, right? Multitasking, not effective. And it also leads down to the basic things of reading and maybe watching TV. You're trying to read a book, absorb the information, what you see, but then there is a visual distractor that also uses visual and cognitive understanding for you to process whatever's going on. So you're switching between that without finishing the first task. So like Argentina said, when we multitask, are we really finishing the tasks that we started, or are we trying to do 20 tasks at one time, leaving many things unfinished, right? So part of the first hack in our series is to really reflect on how well we are managing our tasks to completion. Any questions? Okay.
No, I just know that how much a human want to be multitask can be.
Right.
You can do it, you can accomplish a lot of things. You can, but sure, the brain is like a files.
Right.
And the brain send you a sign to do this, and you do it, and then you go do the other thing. It like 1, 2, 3, 4, one after the others.
Right. That's why it's better kind of just to do one thing at a time, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Next slide. We'll talk about the ultimate hack, SMART goals.
Okay. So for SMART, they all stand for, a specific word, as you can see here in this table. So we need to be specific. What task do we need to accomplish? We need to be measurable. Or our goal needs to be measurable. Like, what exactly do we need to have done? It needs to be achievable, so it needs to be realistic, something that you can get to, something you can reach. Not like, I'm going to cure cancer in 2 months, because that's not quite achievable. And it has to be relevant to what's at hand. Like, is what you're doing actually helping you, or is it a distraction that you want to do? And then you need to think of your time. Like, can you accomplish what you need to set out in a relatively realistic, manageable time? And is it going to be turned in on time by the deadline? And Christian has a few examples that he would like to share with you.
So my name is Christian, and some of the examples that I will point out is relating to some of the previous upper division courses that I've taken, and knowing what you want to finish at a certain time and date and what things you need to do, since due dates do pile on and have multiple papers, presentations, and stuff like that. For example, this book itself is, let's say, 30 chapters, and we have to read maybe half of the book at least by midway through the semester. Yet, to consider the amount of information that you have to read, knowing what kind of specific information that you want to grasp from the book itself is very important, and like what's relevant to the course and stuff like that, and how much time would you give yourself to read all this information? Like, what kind of key points, what other methods can you grab from the book to summarize the things you need? Those are some of the ways I use SMART goals into my studies, courses, and even papers that I have, maybe let's say 10 to 20 pages of papers that are due on a weekly basis now.
Yeah, it's really important to always have that game plan. First purchasing that book at the beginning of the semester, it's like it's thick, right? And there's this expectation, I got to read this whole thing by the end of the semester. Some of this information will be dense, but like, how am I going to do that, right? So Christian, great example, you got to get a plan.
Right.
There's always a plan. We never go into anything blindly. There's examples of us going into things blindly, and how well did that work, right? There's a lot of stress and a lot of struggle along the way. You guys have any questions on SMART goals? Okay. Now, how do we hack our goals? Wailana?
So our first step to hacking our goals is they have to be realistic. They have to set realistic study goals. When I was in high school, I was always like, okay, if I do my homework for 2 hours, I can stop and watch Gilligan's Island, because I was that weirdo who liked watching Gilligan's Island in high school. But that didn't really work, because every hour I'd be like, oh, I've been at this for 10 minutes. I should get up and go get water. I'm going to get up and go get juice. I'm going to put on background music. And I kept getting distracted and nothing would get done. Now that I'm in college, I realized what works better is breaking it up into smaller chunks so that it's easier to achieve. So like, say you're gonna read for 10 minutes, or you're gonna annotate this chapter for 5 minutes, or you're gonna work on your big project for 20 minutes, something small and achievable and realistic. And you'll actually find like, okay, I'm only gonna read for 10 minutes. And then when you look up at the clock, you're like, oh, it's been 15 minutes. And you've actually done and retained a lot more information than you would have done if you just hardcore went for it. Cramming doesn't do a lot of good, because you only remember the last 3 things you read when you cram, I found. And another way to help you get along with those goals is to set time aside for those goals. I know that now that we're home all the time, it's kind of hard to stick to a routine, but the best way to try to do it is just like, okay, on say Thursdays at 4 o'clock is when you have, time where you're not doing anything. You don't have meetings, class, nothing going on with your family. So you're like, okay, I'm going to set that time aside to read for 10 minutes. And then if you find that hard, get help. We're still here, TLC is still here. We can still help you guys. We can help tutor you with study skills, time management, anything to help you reach your goals. And then be honest with yourself. does what you're doing support or does it distract from your goals? Like I said earlier, are you actually working towards your goal, or are you just doing something that you want to do with the excuse of, oh, this is for my project? You know, be honest with yourself. Next slide, please. Unless anyone has any questions.
You're right.
So so one of our tips right here is hacking your readings with goal setting questions. So on the screen, you see there's a list of different questions. These are the kind of questions I ask myself or I write down before I attempt any reading. For example, why is this reading important? How is this reading related to things I've already read or what I already know? How can I take this information and break it up into different sections so I can then go back and say, that was the section that's more important. This was just intro information. What can I skip in this reading? Is this whole entire 30 pages important, or will I be only assessed on the key ideas in each of those sections, you know? And what the main thing is, what do I already know in my own personal experience about this information? So, for example, you know, any kind of situation, any textbook. So for example, biology, you know, I have a body, I have a human body. So how does that information apply to me? How am I always self-reflecting on how it applies versus am I memorizing all this information without any connection to the real world tangible experience? And lastly is, how will your instructor know that you read it? Will you have to do a posting? Will you have to do a summary? What are the instructions for you to acknowledge you read it? Sometimes the instructor just says, read chapter something, something. We'll have a PowerPoint presentation at some point. So the goal in that case was the instructor wanted you to get the overview so when they do the presentation, you're not lost. That's kind of the premise of an instructor asking you to read before a presentation. These are just some example questions, but the goal I want you guys to really understand is you gotta have a lot of questions that leads you towards finding answers when you read your text or that section. So for example, Christian, how well do you read your textbook? Like, could you show us an example of how you attempt to read a chapter?
Oh, before I read a chapter per se, I go to the summary section and see what the key points are and reference that and go back to the sections that does reference that and see what other information it didn't mention. And if it points out it's not relevant or what process are not going to be mentioned are going to be relevant to how the chapter is going to use the information, I'm going to remove that from my notes per se. But take note that it came from that page, or let's say a section of the chapter.
In case you gotta go back to it, right?
Yeah, just to reference in case of like, oh, what's this concept that the professor is mentioning? I'm not too sure on it. Well, that's how I make my papers, or let's say notes for presentations.
And do you feel that's more effective to kind of do that overview first, connect it to, like, go to the summary first and kind of have a game plan of what crucial information is in there?
Yeah, so knowing the summary first is better than blindly going at it, since you don't want to just take your time into reading it. Since I have multiple chapters to read, knowing things that are going to be summarized and other information that's not going to be relevant is the main thing. So prioritizing what information I need from the chapters and sections that I've highlighted and referenced is the main thing.
And all kinds of written works have some form of a summary. So we have our basic 5-point essays where you have an intro, you have the body, and you have the conclusion. If you want to get an overview, what if you just read the conclusion? Did that kind of give you an idea of what the whole paper is about in some sense, right? And then you can kind of go back and figure out where the relevant points are in that. So instead of reading it from, you know, like a fiction book or for leisure, you're reading for information versus reading for pleasure, right? Jenny? Oh, no question? Okay.
I like the technique Chris used. So one day I want to sit down with you so you can show me your technique.
Sure. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, definitely.
Sounds like a very helpful and makes sense.
Yeah. So pretty much it's just really asking a lot of questions before you even start. So once you figure out what the questions are, then you kind of have a game plan of what information that you need to pull out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm one of the person that I think I waste a lot of time because when I read the whole chapter, that's my problem.
Right.
And it take sometimes I'm all day reading the chapter or hours and hours sitting down reading the chapter.
Yeah.
And I learned like if they give me high PowerPoints, I take advantage of the PowerPoint.
Mhm.
Or if no, I use like all the highlights. But I like your point, Chris, and I wish I do that.
Yeah, great. We'll love to work with
Thank
you
you for
one-on-one
sharing.
for sure. Okay. And another part of being able to hack your learning is to use all your senses. When we're reading something, we're usually just reading words. We're trying to process the information. Maybe we'll be taking notes. So that's kind of just like 2 steps in the learning process. But what if we could use our hearing, our taste, our feel, the sounds of success? So the question I asked to the audience is, what does successful learning look like? What does it smell like for you? What does it feel like? What does it sound like? And what does it taste like? So the one that's kind of hard to figure out, okay, what does it taste? What does successful learning taste like? But I kind of use that as like how Wailana earlier talked about when we're hacking our goals is that you have to have a reward. So my reward working at home has been allowing myself to work for a period of time and then have a soda. Then that taste of the soda coming in, I know I can taste that soda coming up, and I want to be able to work effectively and not do less than I can, keep my time limits, but still remember, oh, that taste of that soda, that refreshing thing is going to get me to feel success,
Right.
Smells, sometimes I eat a mint. If I have to take a test, if I'm in a stressful situation, I'll eat a mint. So if I'm going to have to take a test, I'll eat a mint also to kind of use that sensory smell to bring me back to when I learned something, to also kind of use some of the scents to kind of calm you down, because there's a little bit aromatics in it too, to kind of mellow you out a little bit, right? So move beyond just the reading, the writing, but really how do we use our whole sensory input to be able to learn this? How does the learning feel? So by touch and also by emotion, how does successful learning feel inside? When you've achieved something, when you finally learned something, when you finally made a successful outcome out of struggle, there's that feeling that you have of accomplishment. And that's what I'm really talking about, is that feeling of success. You guys want to share? So if anybody have an example of what success feels like in their senses?
I don't know how to explain. Every time I accomplish something, like I did my homework, I did my assignment, I always celebrate everything.
Right.
Yeah. Success learning. Using these methods that you put on the presentations. It's very helpful.
Okay, thanks. So we're not just just eyeballs and ears. We receive the input of the entire world. Figure out different ways that you can use your multi-senses to be able to learn something. Okay.
Kili'i,
Yeah.
just a thought, but I think what that the one that we just came from, I think that's one of the main things of what motivates the person. I mean, like what you just said right here, I really didn't realize that this is what one of the things that motivates me to get my things accomplished.
Mhm.
You put it so simply, and I appreciate it, because you know, sometimes when you're working on a project that is pretty overwhelming, sometimes you just got to look at who's the end result of this. Like,
Right.
who am I doing this for? Is it my student? Is it my community? You know, and you can see them, and you can think about, oh well, the smells. You know, the smells of happiness, the smells of, you know, I mean, being outdoors. Is that where
Right.
that's gonna go? Or the feeling of like, oh, just joy. You know, just so joyful to see the success that not only of what I just accomplished, but how it affects others. I think more than anything, and you know, the sound. You know, this just the sound of happiness and the
Right.
taste of, you know, the taste of like purity of water or sunshine and that kind of stuff. So you put this in a very simple but in-depth century, which I really appreciate, because I'm going to use this forever and ever and ever now.
Oh, great. Yeah, it's kind of like to be able to visualize rather than just visually seeing the future. What
Yeah.
does the whole in like situation gonna look like, right?
Because everybody's, you know, everybody's mind is in a different stage. You know, you might have like a huge project, or you might have a very, very simple project, but that simple project will be very dependent on other things too. So,
Right.
you know, but thank you. I really, really enjoyed. I really like this part. Thank
Oh,
you.
great. Thank you. And it definitely, you know, for anybody who is going to have to do some sort of performance. So taking an exam is a performance, right?
Yeah.
How does that feel in the future? And in some sense, if you visualize how you're going to see that, how you're going to feel it, how you're going to hear it, how you're going to taste it, how it's going to sound, you start to create that environment to plan for. And then when you plan for that environment, you kind of already thought about all the possibilities of problems, right? In some sense, right? How am I going to sound, and how are they going to sound when they learn something? Are they going to be lost, and are they going to be silent? You know, all these things we really got to think about when we put ourselves into that future situation of when we have to perform in some sense. Hack your expectations. Wow.
Okay. So as I mentioned before, you got to have expectations of yourself. So you want to ask yourself these questions. What do you want? What do you want right now? And I don't mean that as like would you like a soda? No, I don't. I mean, what do you want out of your education, out of your time? And then what is your goal? What do you need to do to get what you want or what you need? And then once you realize that and you think, okay, well, here are a few steps I need to take to get to where I want to go. Then you have to ask yourself this question that might hit a lot harder than you think it will. What is the most important thing right now? And that applies to real life as well as school. And I'm gonna share a quick story relating to that question. When did I start at TLC? Like 2017?
Yeah.
2017, my mom got diagnosed with cancer. And I had to genuinely ask myself, is school still important to me? Do I still want this degree? And my answer was yes. I did. I really did. But I also had other things going on in my life that needed my time. So I had to find that balance. And that was really hard, but I was able to do it because I knew what I wanted and what I had to, and I just had to keep following those while still dealing with my mom and everything that was going on. So you have to ask yourself, is this still worth it? Do I still want to keep doing this? Because if your answer is no, then maybe next semester, this isn't the course for you. Everything is crazy right now. You know, COVID came so quickly. And you know what else comes quickly? Change. So you need to keep your mind open. And you need to realize that what worked for you last semester when we were allowed to, you know, be on campus, be next to each other, work together in person, that's not going to really work anymore. That might not work. So change is inevitable. What you used to do probably won't work now. And you need to be flexible with how you're handling both your expectations and your study methods. And you need to realize this is what I need to do now to get it done. And then one way you can do that is on our next slide. Also, sorry for bringing everyone down with my mom cancer story.
Not a problem.
These are real things that are happening right now.
And that's the thing, right? A lot of us, sometimes academia can kind of be very top down. Like a lot of times, you know, I've heard when I went to school is school had to be the priority, but no, like I still got to go pay bills. You know, family things come up. And am I supposed to ignore that, but still keep the pressure of school and performing well in school? It's this ability to be adaptive is what we're kind of looking for, you know, not just saying, oh, it's just too hard, I give up. You know, let me just start over and give up. We really can't. We really can't. And in some sense, you set those small goals to be able to see the end of the light at the end of the tunnel. If you're not able to see any light at the end, it's too dark. You got to go get a flashlight. You know, you got to get your tools to be able to see the light, you know, and surround yourself with people that can also bring that out of you. Though, you know, we are far apart, but we're still connected. And we don't want you guys to forget about that.
You know, Ali, I like to share one thing that you're talking about that. One of the things I accomplished by going college is that you guys notice like when a class begin, you all like, oh my gosh, so much assignments, so much, how gonna do that? Just like, all stressed out. Like, it's so going to back to school, I learned that you just have to go with the flow, you know, don't let things catch you up and go over you, you know, just go with the flow, do your stuff little by little. Don't worry, like sometimes I'm like, oh my God, I'm gonna do this and I'm gonna do this. And then my tutors tell me, don't worry, Argentina, you got this, you're gonna get over, you know, you got it. And I hear that a lot on learning center from some classmate, and like sometimes I'm like, oh my God, this is so bad, how I'm gonna do it. Eventually you read it through and you go through and then the days coming and you go over, and all of a sudden you go over that class and another one coming and so, and that's my goal. I just learned that nothing is impossible, and we all can do it, and we just have to go with the flow and keeping track and follow up. Eventually we finish and we get it.
And then you look back and you see how far you came, right? I mean, isn't that such a drive to keep going forward that you made it?
Yes. Yeah, nothing is impossible.
And it's so important to reach out too. You know, you said you reached out for help.
Express yourself, talk to friends, get help from people that are surrounded, people that are out there ready to help you.
And supportive people too that help you towards your goal, not, you know,
exactly.
distract you away from your goal.
I very, very appreciate a person. I appreciate every single moment, everybody. I so grateful for everyone that is surrounding me and everyone that reached to me to say thank you, can I help you, all that stuff.
And I missed your hugs, Argentina. It's Melissa.
Yeah. But I love you, honey.
I love you too.
With all my heart.
She wasn't paid to say that.
I miss your hug too.
No, we're kidding. Keeping
All
your
right.
expectations in mind.
And now let's get to time management.
So hacking your time management. How can you best manage or hack? Okay, I'm gonna drop the hacking. I'm sorry. How to manage your time management. Manage your time. So one of the things you can do is build a study plan. You know, like I said before, try to keep to, you know, like at least have one set aside time to work on your assignments. You know, keep a routine. Don't let yourself stagnate, whatever the word is. Don't let yourself just sit there and like, I'm bored, so I'm not gonna do anything, or I'm gonna take a nap. No, that's not a healthy way to live. So try to keep some form of a routine. Try to do one thing every day at the same time. Make your bed, brush your teeth, eat lunch. Plan
Reflect
ahead.
on your goals, you know,
Write
definitely.
down your goals.
Yeah.
Schedule a review time for both, you know, your assignments and your study habits. Think about how you just studied after you're done. Like, did it work? Like, or even as you're studying, is this working? Am I really understanding what I'm doing? You know,
Yes,
what is going on in my brain?
a smell, tastes good, feel good.
Success
what
tastes
you're doing
good,
It's a
right?
glory.
Does it
When
leave-
I have homework and I don't finish, I can't sleep well. I will dream with this. I will have nightmare. I sleep better when I'm done.
Yes. One of my classes, we had to read and annotate, and we had to turn in an annotated reading every day. We can't really do that anymore because, you know, we can't just hand her a paper and say, oh, look at all my pretty notes. We couldn't do that, so she came up with a new way for us to annotate. And it still works effectively because we're still looking for the same things in our notes. She's like, here are the 6 things I want you to know out of your reading. Know these 6 things, write them down, write down your questions. And she still looks at it and she still goes over it and it still works. So that's another way of adapting to an online format. And then don't remember things, because as human beings, we're kind of like goldfish. We don't remember things that good. So write it down. Your brain makes a connection when you physically do the action of writing something down. And also you'll have a physical copy of what you're trying to remember right in front of you.
There's definitely something about that tangibleness of crossing it off your list,
Yes.
right? Like knowing
Yeah.
you wrote it, you crossed it off, that's done. Push it, you know.
Also, crossing something off my list where it's like, okay, I don't have to worry about that for the rest of the week is like, it's like a waterfall of relief. That's what it feels like, a waterfall of relief.
And then you see the larger picture of where you came from and where you are, right?
You're that much closer to your
Lots
end
of
goal.
wayfinding for sure. You got to be able to know where you are at any point. If you got a list, you've crossed them off, you know where you are, you know how far you've come.
And while you're crossing off that list, don't forget to take breaks.
Yes.
Because if you run out of steam, that sucks because it's real hard and it takes a really long time for that steam to build back up. You're like a train. You can't just keep shoveling coal in there because then you're going to run out of coal. You need to
maintain the engine, right?
You need to maintain the engine. You got to stop at stations and reload on coal.
Right.
Or cola if you're Kaylee.
Or cola, yeah.
Yeah, take breaks. But not like, 2-hour breaks because I've been like, I'm going to sit here for like 5 minutes and then I'll fall asleep. No.
Right.
Like, yeah, I'm going to drink a soda or I'm going to go get more water. It's like
it's sort of like rewarding yourself when you do your breaks, that you only give your break really because you've accomplished something. Like, early Argentina said, you've finished the task. Now you can take a break. But then, give yourself that time limit in some sense so you have that urgency. Actually, that's what we're going to talk about in the next slide.
And for me, I know that something that is hugely helpful that I learned with a TLC tutor is that we do a calendar of all my assignments in my classes that I have to do. And for me, doing that calendar has been hugely helpful because it makes me seeing it on paper helps it not to be swirling around in my head.
Right. exactly.
And it takes away a lot of the anxiety. Plus, I feel good because I visually see the end result on paper. And it also gives me, by looking at the calendar, it also gives me confirmation that yes, I did this. Okay, I'm on track, and I don't have as much anxiety anymore.
That's good.
Yeah. And that's exactly, you know, how this works. Is it relieves a lot of the anxiety.
I agree with you, Barbara.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, she taught me that. The TLC tutor taught me that, and it changed my world literally. And it's taken off a ton of stress because, like I said, we do the calendar method where you just take a calendar template and you write down the month and you write down all the assignments that you have to do in that month.
Great. Thanks, Barbara. So we keep talking about, you know, spaced working, taking the break. So let me focus a little bit more on how that really works. So there's this technique called the Pomodoro technique. I think that's an Italian word for tomato or something. Not sure.
Yes, it is.
It is? Okay, good. Thank you, Argentina.
You're welcome. Pomodoro and
It's a little timer, right? That's shaped like a tomato. So the idea is that your brain on average can only handle 20 minutes of learning input. So that means you read something, you have to understand what it is, you have to process it and review. So there's only about 20 minutes that your brain can handle in that period of time, and then your brain needs a break. Lots of students, lots of us, hard workers, we want to keep working. We see more hours in the day, so let's keep working and working and working until we are exhausted and felt like we were productive. But then we look back. How productive were we? How many of us in the room kind of felt like, God, it was so busy today, but what did I really do? Right? Having no game plan, having no spaced out timing, you know, causes this kind of, at the end of the day, exhaustion, where we forget that I did something but not sure exactly if that's what I was supposed to do. If we work blindly because we have time, we're not going to be productive. We need to work in a way of managing the time and saying the time will work for me. So for example, the 20-minute breaks. I'm sorry, the 20-minute working sessions and then 5 to 10 minutes of breaks in between. The reason why we want to give us a study time limit is because whenever we have a time limit, deadlines, what do? They create a sense of urgency, right? Anytime you have a deadline, oh, I got to get it done by then, right? But think about when you have small time limit, 20 minutes. How well is that going to help you when you also have to play the different roles at home, as a mom, as a family member, as an owner of animals, right? These 20 minutes are kind of short. You feel like they're really short, but really because you're doing the urgency of keeping as much as you can do and complete as much as you can do within 20-minute breaks, you start to really figure out, okay, I have 20 minutes here. Let me go and study this. Oh, now kids come in. I got to go take care of the kids. Okay, I'm going to take care of that. But instead of multitasking and not completing it, when you're done with the 20-minute break and you have to switch to another task that's completely different than learning, you really have to write down a summary. Write down what was the last thing you remember and just kind of go back to that afterwards. Or if you're going to go through a full day of studying, 20-minute breaks, have a goal for each 20 minute, right? It sounds like a lot of work. It takes a lot of practice. But really writing down, okay, in the next 20 minutes, I will understand these 10 concepts from chapter 15, okay? Now, if you're able to do all 10, drink a Coke. If you haven't, then you did 5. Your next 20 minutes will be the next 5, right? You never want to leave things hanging when you have to switch between tasks, because that then creates the whole multitasking, dangerous situation of doing too many things and leaving a lot of things unfinished. Okay. It also avoids the perception of having all the time in the world to do your homework, to do your work, to do anything, right? If you don't give yourself a time limit to complete a task, there's always that chance I can keep working on it, I can add more to it. And then you get to the point of, well, I probably sat here for too long, my neck hurts, I didn't eat anything. You start forgetting, because when you're in the zone, it's hard to get out of the zone, but you really got to manage the zone focus. Okay. Any questions about that? So simple as just taking a 20-minute break, figure out if you were successful in meeting your 20-minute goal, you know, whatever outcome you needed to do, and then take a break, reflect, walk around, process the information in your brain as you're, you know, as you're taking your break to figure out, okay, what did I read, you know, and then come back to it. You'll find that you're able to do a lot of these quick review sessions based on more practice, right? But the premise is you got to have a goal for those 20 minutes. Stick to the 20 minutes, find out what you've completed, carry on the next 20 minutes, anything you didn't do, celebrate any successes that you've done in the meantime. Okay, any questions? All right. This one, these are just some ideas of hacking testing. So one of the things we kind of want students to do, and any one of us, is to create a real testing environment when we have to take an exam. So these involve making mock exams, making your own test questions, asking a study buddy group to create test questions and test each other. Practice the test questions in a time limit. Exams will have time limits. A lot of times they do. Sometimes they don't. Quiz your classmates to see how much they know and how much you know. Fill in the gaps when you work with classmates. This is a way for us to say, you know, you don't have to learn in isolation. We have technology and tools to be able to bridge the distance. So we want to be able to use some of these things to reinforce the knowledge you've learned, right? And a lot of times people in your classroom have all learned the same information, so they all gotta be able to fill in the blanks with some of the things that you don't understand, right? So before, always create a testing environment that you can then use to kind of deal with some of the testing anxiety as well. So when I asked to answer a big essay question, I feel this way. Okay, so let's visualize how I can feel when I have to take the real test, when it's a real, you know, situation. How can I deal with the feelings and the senses, and what am I going to look at? How am I going to focus? What is the situation going to look like when I take a test situation? Visualize that during the test prep as well. And then during the exam, these are just some tips. Open book questions usually are not the easiest ones, okay? So that doesn't mean you have to go and not study and just bring your textbook and you ace the test. A lot of times open book tests are never the easiest. They're probably harder because you're gonna have to do a lot of writing. Essay questions, kind of figure out what is the who, what, where, when, why, and hows of essay questions. You know, what is the information? Who is the information about, if it's relevant? Any wheres, if there's any concept like history questions, and a lot of process questions like, you know, math and things, you know, that's the how, right? So you kind of remember what are those hows. Math questions, I say, this is my own hacking method, is I don't do any of the math questions where they're all written out in formulas. I do the word questions because those are the hardest ones. And in the real world, everything is a word problem, right? Everything is not written out in an algebraic formula, something x plus this equals something, right? The real world has problems, and we have to use our critical thinking to be able to solve those problems. So if I have to take a math exam, I will only do the word questions, because those word questions are going to be the ones where I can kind of reevaluate how this information makes sense. Sometimes you can take the word questions, change some of the nouns to make them, you know, relevant nouns. so you can kind of refocus the question in your own situation. But I would just practice the word questions, the word problems, and convert them to real world scenarios, because that's the real world. The real world is not going to give you a formula. The real world is going to say, here's a problem, figure out how to solve it, right? And the key thing with all testing is read the questions before starting. You want to do a survey of the entire exam, because there might be some questions that'll be easy, and then there might be some questions that take some time. So you need to get your game plan when you're on the test before you start. How many questions are going to take a lot of time to answer? How many questions look really easy? And to kind of adjust your time based on how much time you have to take on each of those questions. Any questions? Cool, pretty straightforward. Okay. All right, now this is the key thing everybody wants to know. How do I deal with procrastination? Everybody is going to be a procrastinator at some time. Procrastination is a natural human ability to not get rid of. If you are a procrastinator, there is help. Okay, but the first thing is understanding what kind of procrastinator you are. Right? So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different types of procrastinators. Right? Are you a perfectionist? So a perfectionist is a person that will work on an activity until they're exhausted. They will do over research. They will go back and change things that are not necessary. They don't like good enough, you know? Everything has to be perfect. But what happens is that's so much energy on one task that multiple courses, how do you divvy up that perfectionist work amongst all your courses? You cannot, it's impossible, right? So sometimes with perfectionists is that sometimes the classes that aren't as interesting might get dropped to the side, or they might not be 100% because this one class is completely being focused on. So that's the perfectionist type of procrastinator. Okay. Dreamers. So I think I'm a dreamer type of procrastinator. When I did my master's program, I procrastinated on my final thesis presentation. I procrastinated on it because I didn't have anything that was created. I didn't have any documents that said this is where I'm going. I didn't see any evidence of me being effective. All of it was in here because I was dreaming. What if I do this? What if I do that? But you know what happens? Got a lot of ideas in here, nothing on paper, right? Nothing in here can be turned in unless there's some evidence, right? So a lot of dreamers will always work till the last day and cram that night before and get everything done. Dreamers sometimes get a false sense of accomplishment because in the past, maybe there's one time in the past where they procrastinated the night before and they got accolades. You know, they got the best grade, they got everything worked out. So that sort of reinforces, well, maybe that's my working style. But really, it's stressful because there's nothing that's done in time for you to deal with the stress. That last day, I was a grouch. I was like, nobody talk to me, go away. My coworker was like, you need to close your office and get this done. You know, I'm like, I can't, because I gotta do this and this, you know? It's just, being a dreamer is the worst kind of procrastination, I feel, because that's personally my style, because it's stressful that last day and you get so, the word, you know, the B word towards other people, you know? Avoiders, okay. Anybody in the room is an avoider. So an avoider is, I'm not gonna do the hard thing. I'm gonna do the easy thing first, you know? Avoid anything that's difficult. Also, I'll only do the things that I think are fun, and I'll avoid the things that are difficult and try to get an extension. So a lot of excuses happen with avoiders, right? Crisis makers. So crisis makers have a burst of energy where everything is important, everything got to get done, everything got to get done now, right? And then there's heightened stress level all the time. You know, being in a heightened stress level is not healthy at all, right? That's a crisis maker. Now, here we have the false productive person we call the busy procrastinator. These are the people that you might have somebody in your mind that looks busy. They look really busy. They're doing a lot of things. You know, maybe they're shuffling some papers. They're, you know, on the computer doing things. You know, they're not on Facebook, but they look like they're doing something. But really, what are they really doing? You know, they're providing this perception of being busy. So, for example, students. Sometimes some students might be perceived as being busy because they're communicating with you, but are they producing anything, right? So you got to think about that. What kind of procrastinator are you? So I'll open it up to the audience. What kind of a procrastinator do you think you are?
Can I be a combination of all?
Combination, right? Different situation, right?
I'm a dreamer.
A lot of thinking
And
ahead of time.
because being a dreamer I am where I am right now, and I keep dreaming. So I keep dreaming every day for things I want and happen to me in the future. And I'm a dreaming with a lot of patience.
But you dream and then you make it happen, right?
Dream comes true. You know, dreams come true.
Right. So being a dreamer is great, but you got to make something happen, right? You got to say, okay,
Yeah.
I'm gonna take the next step instead of thinking about this and do
I want
something.
to be professional at this. I want to be professional in survey. I want to have it measured. That's all my dreams and goals. In one way, we call it goal, yeah.
Yeah,
but
goals.
I dream this. In order for you to want something, you have to dream it. Like that's the way I want to be.
But you don't want to be dreaming all the time, right?
Depend how you know, dream to me mean achieve a goal. I'm saying on that way, yeah. Achieve a goal.
And if you're not working on any goals, then
I go for it. You know, go for it is a dreamer. Go for everything. Yeah. Professionalist, a dreamer is also this type of person, like things not always perfect, but you do your best to get it perfect, and you do the best of your best.
Thanks. So mainly you really want to figure out how you fit in this procrastination. And like Jenny said, you know, depending on the situation, it's going to be different. On the screen, I have different tips. Perfectionist, you need to write an end goal with the details of what like perfect is. You know, if you just say, I want to be perfect, but what does that really look like in the context? So for perfectionists, or if it's a situation where you are trying to be a perfectionist, what is perfect? Like, really work at that and figure out in your goal, what is perfect? What does perfect look like? Okay. And is it achievable? For the dreamers, you need to be able to allow yourself to dream, but then you got to give yourself a time to stop and act. You need to be realistic and when you're most productive. Like dreamers, you know, we need to be able to figure out when I can stop dreaming, you know, when it's time to do action.
Yeah.
Avoiders. Now, avoiders, the hardest thing is to do the hard things, right? So the suggestion for avoiders is to do the hard thing first. Okay? Whatever that is, do the hard thing first, but then give yourself time limits when you create a large task and break up the task into smaller time durations as well, okay? Crisis makers, using a lot of that burst of energy, refocus that energy on one single thing, okay? Everything's going to be important. Of course, everything's going to be important for crisis makers, but in a crisis maker, they got a lot of energy and they got short bursts of energy. They got to make sure that one thing is the focus of using that energy. Don't waste that energy on things that will not move you forward. And a busy procrastinator is really just get your priorities in order. You know, how important and urgent is it to complete what you're doing? Is this important for your goals? Are you just doing something because it's the perception of being busy, you know?
Yeah.
Like, my problem is I can go and rearrange my desk many, many times. I feel so busy, but really I'm not doing anything, you know? Right, Melissa?
Those kind dreamers, I don't like.
And yeah,
do.
so definitely figure out what kind of a procrastinator you are. Different tips on the screen for dealing with that type of procrastination. End goals, time limits, doing the hard thing first, and getting priorities straight. Okay.
All right. Thank you, Kaylee. So, bringing it all home, the things you need in order to, you know, successfully study and, you know, achieve your goals, at least academically, right now is you do need reliable internet because everything's moved online. You can't do it without it. I'm assuming you all have found internet, obviously, since you're all here. But if internet is something you're struggling with, you know, at UHMC on Instagram has a list of drive-to spots for internet. You can call the campus for more options. They're being really accommodating with a lot of students, or they at least have suggestions that students can look to. You need a study space, someplace that's clean. And when I say comfortable, I don't mean like, oh, I need like a blanket for it. No, just someplace where you can sit down and you're willing to sit there for a while. So I have an office chair because I'm a nerd and I really wanted an office chair for my 15th birthday, so I got one. I see Kaylee laughing at me. Yeah, and it needs to be clean. I'm not going to show you my desk because right now it's not a good example. There's glue everywhere. You need to establish a routine. Try to do one thing consistently through the days. Don't laugh at my glue. I was trying to put my books back together. You want to stay clean and healthy. So yeah, even though we can't leave the house, you know, and even though all our workshops are online, you still gotta wash your hands. You still gotta, you know, shower every day, please. And you need to stay hydrated because I will be honest, I forget to drink water all the time. That's why I left halfway through this meeting because I'm like, I didn't drink water all day. So I'm doing that now. Communication is really important right now. Communicating with your teacher, with your classmates. If you miss a day of school for whatever, we still miss class every day. My classmates miss class all the time. I missed class last week because I wasn't feeling good. My internet wasn't working too well. So I didn't attend class, but I still had to email my teacher. So I had to call my classmates. I'm like, what did I miss? Being an active learner, you know, asking questions, asking for more discussion or more explanation is more important than ever right now. Because it's not like you can just go up to your teacher's office and be like, I didn't get what we talked about today. You can't do that anymore. You have to wait for them to, you know, open a Zoom room, or you got to wait for class the next day, or you have to wait for them to respond to an email or a text or a call or whatever. So being an active learner is more important than ever. And then it's still important to reach out to your friends, your family, your support network. That support network didn't go away when COVID hit. I hope it didn't go away. Let me rephrase that.
Yeah, we're still here.
Yeah, we're still here. We're still your friends. Yeah, TLC didn't go away. We're still tutoring. We're still offering, you know, academic support. We can, even if we can't help you with whatever class you're dealing with, we can help you with study skills, or we can find you someone who can. We can help you find a way to solve your problem. We're not just going to ditch you if we don't know the answer to your question. We're going to work with you to find that solution. And then another thing you need is just information, like of what's going on right now. Like if you read the news, who knows, maybe tomorrow it's like, oh, you can go outside again. It probably will not. Please don't go outside. But you need to be aware of what's going on. Any change, any updates that the world has is going to affect your schedule some way. So like it might change your lesson plan. My teacher just emailed us this morning saying, hey, we're not having class for the next week because of blah, blah, blah. So, you know, that's something you need to be aware of. because that could change your everyday life. That could change your routine. UHMC could just tomorrow say, nope, school's done for the rest of the year. No school. Don't go to class. Don't turn anything in. No one's getting credit this year. You need to be aware of those changes that's going on. Because I'll be honest, I ignored like 5 emails from my teacher, and then when I finally looked at them, I was like, oh, everything changed. I need to change my final project. I need to submit this. I need to submit that. I need to attend this meeting at this time. And yeah, it's really important to check your emails, especially now. And we're still here to help with all of that if that seems overwhelming. We're still here. I promise we aren't abandoning you. Because we care. And now it's evaluation time.
Yeah, give us a little bit of what you guys learned. What you can do is you're going to use your mobile device. You're going to go to, or a browser. You're going to go to the website, sli.do. And there's going to be a little box on the screen where you type in the event number, 80590. And go ahead and post in what tips or things you felt that you able to utilize in your own studies and your own productivity.
Can you how to hold that on the screen? Maybe I just don't know how to use it, but the screen is blocking all the words. SL.
Just move, scroll to the left, the icon where, go to the top and scroll with your mouse to the left where you can see your photo.
Oh.
Okay. That way you can see the information. Because I know what you mean.
Okay, got it. Got it. Thank you.
Thanks, Argentina.
You're welcome. Sorry.
Oh, that was very helpful. Thank you. Because I was like, oh, what is blocking review?
See that.
Okay, so once you guys have gotten onto the site, go ahead and post, and then I'll switch it over to somebody.
I have it open.
Okay, switch it over. Got
there it is. I found it. Okay, I'm gonna share my screen now. Oh, never mind. I gotta wait till Kaylee stops.
Yeah, how do you stop share?
There's a button that says stop share.
Got it. Thanks. Thanks, Argentina.
Thank you, Kaylee. Thank you, Kalana. Thank you, Jenny.
Oh God, where's the thing?
Everybody.
I think it's live.
There we go. I got it. I figured it out.
Okay, so your guys' comments. Let's see.
Oh, I didn't put nothing in.
Free knowledge, different types of procrastination. Good. I should probably answer this too. Realistic expectations and goal setting. Using your senses. I did like the senses one too. That one was good. Better awareness of the ways to counter procrastination. We're all procrastinators in this house.
It's kind of, you can't get rid of procrastination. Procrastination is always going to be there. You just got to use it to your own advantage in some sense.
And Chris is making. Procrastinating is okay.
Well, so for example, so me being a dreamer, when I procrastinate, I really have to tell myself, oh, that's a great idea. Let me write it down before I forget, On my phone, I got little notes or something, or just verbally say something. If there's a large project I'm trying to mentally think about, but I'm procrastinating because I haven't figured out how to start. For me, easiest tip, as soon as something makes sense, write it down, Yeah, procrastination is okay. There's different ways of procrastinating, and honestly, emergencies come up and procrastination has to come into play because there's an urgent thing that needs to be done.
Procrastinating is okay. Yes, that Yes, very important. Using
But
your sun.
beware of it. Be aware of it. That's the main thing. And use it to your advantage.
Time management, knowing what our limits are. Good. Great. Did everyone get the chance to put in at least one thing in the slide do? Okay. I'm gonna stop sharing, Kaylee. You can bring it back to the presentation. Stop
Oops.
share.
I closed it.
Happy Corona.
Is the devil's own invention. I don't know why I have an Irish jig stuck in my head. Is your screen share going okay over there?
Yeah, actually, I closed the whole presentation. I gotta go log back to it.
Okay, I can pull it up. I think I have
Great.
it up.
Thanks, sis.
Thanks. Yes. Okay, hang on. Let's get out of this. Oh, I did have it open. Look at that. Awesome. Okay.
That's right.
Okay.
You're never alone. You gotta work. You have a team. Rely on your team.
You guys can see the whole slide, right? You guys
Yep.
can't see. Okay, cool.
Yeah,
Yes.
we saw
Alright.
the whole thing.
So thank you for coming to our presentation.
You're very welcome.
We ran a little long,
Well
but
done.
I'm glad to have all you guys here. It's great having a live presentation with live people to be able to have a good flow. Any questions, contact us. Our phone number is on the screen there. Send us an email. Would you like a copy of this presentation? We can go and send you a copy of the presentation. And of course, we got a lot of our study skills and study tips on our website, maui.hawaii.edu/TLC.
Yep.
Mahalo, everybody.
And
Mahalo.
for more shows,
Hello.
Instagram at UHMC TLC, UH Maui TLC.
Maui.hawaii.edu/email.
Why don't you
Hello.
share this presentation with
These will be the
everybody?
outtakes.
I was so confused. I was like,